As I promised, I am back. Things haven't exactly gone according to plan, but you will soon understand that they have worked out in the end, and I'll get to that in a second. I'm just glad for now that everything is over. If this is for better or for worse, it's something I've yet to think about. I'd realized pretty quickly that the only way to bring Irene down was to destroy her vanity, and the best way to do it was giving her the face and body she always had. That wasn't an idea I had in the spur of the moment. Rather, it was something I already knew deep down. I just wasn't ready to accept it yet. Once I finished that call, though any uncertainty I had vanished. I'd rather do it and end it all, or have whatever Irene became remain a puppet and destroy everything that crossed its path. My choice was obvious. During the afternoon, I went back to Irene's house and got her astonishing plastic surgery kit. I had to avoid suspicion and jumped over the backyard fence instead of using the front door that had been locked and covered by the police. After that, it was pretty easy to enter the house through the kitchen window that had a broken lock and couldn't be closed properly, get what I wanted, and leave. And no one would suspect a thing, not with gloves at least. As expected, no one was home to surprise me. Then I had only to prepare myself physically and mentally for my guests to arrive. Night fell, and I started to lose faith that Irene would come. I thought she was going to play me and never show up, but I was wrong. It was already late, close to midnight, when the doorbell rang. I ran to open the door but found no one there. A noise upstairs is what caught my attention next, and I understood it was her, of course, sitting in my bed while cutting her nails with a small knife. She had done much more to her face after we last met. Now her nose was so pointy and skinny, it would be impossible for a human being to breathe through it, and she had shaved her jaw even more to match the freaky look. You could even see the outline of her posterior teeth's roots pressing against her skin, where the jaw was shaved so thinly it became more of a veil than a bone. Her double eyelids were stitched so high and so firmly it was hard for her to blink, making her look perpetually awake and surprised. "So, you want to stop me? You want me to become uglier so you can be the pretty one again, huh?" she said in an angry and nasty tone. I was trying hard not to piss her off, being as cautious as possible. "That's not what I want, and you know that. You need to wake up." It clearly didn't work, and Irene just jumped at my neck, pinning me to the ground. She was never strong, but in that moment, she was the strongest a human can ever be. Fueled by her hate and madness, she was going to choke me if I refused to do something, so I did. I stabbed her with that pocket knife I had been carrying ever since the beginning of this madness. In a second, she had let go of me, and I did what I had already been planning to do. I tied her up to my bed to start the procedures. The look of betrayal in her face almost discouraged me from doing what was right, and for that moment of trickery, I almost believed it was really my friend, back from the dead. But as soon as betrayal gave up to hate, I was more sure than ever I had to do what was right. I prepared her equipment after gagging her and tying up her legs as well. The syringes and needles, nail files, the bottle of pus, cotton balls, knives, needle and thread, and of course her own makeup. For some reason, a strange thought popped in my head, that I was almost doing a YouTube tutorial on beauty. I remember we used to joke about doing a joint channel for that. I would be the model and Irene the makeup artist behind the scenes. But now, things would be a little different, and I only hoped my skills would be good enough to transform her back into the person she used to be, instead of making it worse. I decided to start with something easy, removing the fillers in her nose, chin, cheek, agiosol, and boobs. All I had to do was take the syringe and needle and carefully suck the mixture of pus and blood she had been injecting into her own body. By the end of it, I was glad I had taken another bottle, a 5-liter one, because it simply would not fit the small 500-milliliter one she had been filling up with her homemade chemical. There was so much pus, I was surprised she wasn't as soft to the touch as she should have been. You know the texture of swollen skin, right? When you press it down, you can feel the liquid underneath, and as soon as you let go, it goes back to being what it was. I was afraid that I was going to throw up everything in my stomach, but I somehow ended up not feeling nauseous at all while going through this. Next, I tackled her legs. Her legs were never thick like mine, but they had never been literal skin and bones like they were now. Doing the exact opposite of what she had done before in front of my terrified eyes that day, I injected the liquid back into her legs, shaping them with my hands like they used to be. The more the bottle's liquid was exposed to oxygen, the worse it reeked of. In a few minutes it smelled like death, as if I was smelling a true corpse, only liquefied. After getting her legs back to normal, the wounds caused by the multiple needle holes healed quickly, disappearing right in front of my eyes. After that, the most problematic part, the one I had been dreading the most, her face. After the fillers had been removed, certain areas of her face sunk, as the skin over the liquid stretched to accommodate it, and I knew I had to do something about it, but not for now. I was sure the skin will end up stretching anyways when I was finished with her jaw. The eyes were pretty simple. All I had to do was cut the eyelids and stitch them back how they used to be. A monolid on her right eye and a tapered double eyelid on her first left eye. Unlike traditional plastic surgery, where you have the opportunity to undo the stitching and do it again as many times as you need to make sure it's perfect, I had to work against the clock and against her healing skill. I couldn't do perfect, so I could only hope and aim for the best my hands would offer me. Now it was finally time for the jaw. What I had been avoiding since the beginning. To do this, I had to remove the gag. Promise me you won't scream, okay? I begged her. My only answer was almost being bitten in my hand. I was afraid like I have never been before, afraid I couldn't bring myself to it ever since that day. I couldn't sleep and rest at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I would only hear the sound of Irene filing her jaw, and I would see it in my dreams. The thought of it haunted me. There are certain things that you can never forget, and even now, it's like she's sanding her bone into oblivion forever and ever. And I doubt I will ever be able to sleep and close my eyes peacefully without remembering the unsavory sight of that dreadful day when I cut into her skin and saw blood soaking through my hands and my bed sheets. I had to stop and puke for the first time that day, and it wouldn't be the last. I knew I was going to run out of pus to simply fill in her jaw and shape it like it used to be, so I had to be creative and make something up that would fill up the void where her bone used to be. Cotton balls. They didn't have the same density as bones, but at this point it was the best I had in mind. So I opened a hole big enough to fit several cotton balls and shaped them into the square jaw she used to have, until I was satisfied. The blood that soaked my hands was thick and dark. Slightly rotten smell of it made my stomach even more upset. However, this wasn't even the worst part yet. Sewing the hole closed was. The muscles and skin were slippery from the blood, and the needle required a lot of force to go through Irene's skin. More than once, I almost pricked my fingers, and by the end of it, I wasn't sure whether or not I had been sewing the right muscles back together, since my own tears had been clouding my vision. Not that it really matters, anyways, as her jaw was unusable, regardless. I finished the suture through blood, tears, and puke, and I felt emotionally and physically exhausted by the unholy task. The only thing left to do was do her makeup. Truly transform Irene back into the person she used to be. Dark foundation, crisp black eyeliner, pink apricot lip balm, and shimmery eyeshadow. By the end of the process, I was impressed not only with my skills, but also because of how much she now resembled her old self. Almost a carbon copy of the girl she used to be. At that point, I didn't know what else to do. I was hoping somehow the transforming her back into the person she used to be would magically bring her back, and any memories I had left of this horror show would be erased. But things didn't work out quite as I planned. Irene was still there, a shell of her former self, hissing at me truly like an animal. I thought I had failed and made her go through that torture for nothing by my own delusions, so I untied her. You're probably thinking this is where things went wrong, and in a sense, you're right. But that was also our key to freedom. Irene stabbed me with a small knife she had been hiding since the beginning, and I stabbed her with my pocket knife. It wouldn't be the first time we hurt each other, but it would be the last. One thing that people never tell you about being stabbed is how little it actually hurts when the object is still inside you. Be it because of adrenaline or something else, I only felt pain when she pulled back the knife, and I started bleeding from that. I only felt a weird type of pressure on my insides, but I had always been stronger than Irene, and I pushed my knife further inside her abdomen than she did. I like to think she was controlling herself as not to kill me, but this is something I can never be sure of. Then things became blurry and I lost all my strength I had in my legs. There was also this strange ringing noise in my ears that I later realized was the doorbell. I've heard screams and Dae-sung there calling the ambulance. After that, there was a long period of silence interrupted by Irene's dying whisper of thank you. Until I woke up hours later in the hospital, I thought that, and the moment when she became dust in between my fingers, had been a hallucination, but two people can't hallucinate the exact same thing. I woke up hours later in the hospital with my parents right beside me, tons of police officers, and a suffocating feeling. I didn't have the courage to tell the whole truth because, well, I think you understand me. I just told them Irene attacked me and left. While Dae-sung corroborated my story, he had actually come to see me that night because Irene had paid the clinic a visit earlier in the night and killed his father before he even had a chance to defend himself. He thought it was worth telling me she was ready to kill me. I didn't have the heart to tell him that she had all the chances of killing me during the evening. She just chose not to. It's something we owe to each other as friends, that undying loyalty. I don't know how things are going to work out, if it's really worth to tell about Dr. Seo's malpractice of medicine, or if it's better to leave things buried as they are. All I can say for now is that if my parents had any hope I'd become a doctor, they're really, really wrong.